I'm coming to you live from my home in Canada today with my fourth cold in as many months. Man, after 2 years of, forced isolation for the COVID years, as I call them, we were pretty good that whole time. We really, I mean, it makes sense, right? No exchange of real germs with hardly anybody. And we were already a homeschool family, so we didn't like interact with tons of people anyway. Oh my goodness, it has been since September, October, November, December. My 11th born baby Corey turns 1 today, and she just had her first fever last night. Thankfully, it doesn't seem like it's the RSV that's going around, but whew, she got up to 101 yesterday. So I was in a high state of alert, watching her really carefully, like re-Googling, even though I'm an experienced mom, 11 kids. Still, there's just, infants and fevers I go into high alert mode. So I'm happy that I'm here with you today. This is my last live broadcast that I had planned for 2022 for my usual schedule. Today I have on my heart to share with you 3 things that I did not know about big family motherhood. Listen, there's probably about like 3 million things I didn't really know about big family motherhood because if you've heard my story, I was not prepared for motherhood. I mean, kind of, sort of, but not really. I went to school full time. My mom was like, had me in the late 70s. So she was off to work, by the time I was 11. And there just was very little cultural preparation and support. I wasn't a Christian until I was 21. So it was like a double whammy learning curve. But now that I am a year out from having had my 11th born child, I feel comfortable saying that I'm a big family mom. In fact, I have it on good authority that I'm a huge family mom. I don't know if you consider big family being 3 plus in our culture, because most people statistically in the West, both in Canada and the USA, the average birth rate is in decline and has been steadily for the past many years. It's well below, like it's 1.4 last I looked for the last metrics. So yeah, big family motherhood, not a lot of preparation and training or support. So 3 things I didn't know, and I can kind of smile about now. But if I cry twice during this broadcast, bear with me. Partially, it's the fourth cold in a row. The other is because it's my baby's birthday, and birthdays for me tend to be a little bit tenderhearted. Another story for another time. Just brings up other stuff in my life, more personal stuff. There's nothing to do with the kids. It's just my own stuff. Just being honest about that because I'm talking with my girlfriends. Okay, 3 things I didn't know. So I had a lot of fears, like I was just telling you, a lot of stereotypes. In fact, I used to look when I was on college campus or a Bible training college in the States, before I became a mom. And maybe I already had 1 child at this time, but I remember it was my first time ever seeing big families with, like, 7 kids, 10 kids in their giant vans. Because I was in this tight-knit Christian, Protestant community, and, yeah, I'd never really seen that before because I was only a Christian, like, 2 years ago. We lived in Canada, and I just didn't see that. Biggest family at our church back in Canada had 5 kids, and they were done. So when I saw like 7-child family, then a 10-child family, and then there was 1 family, granted they were blended, but still they had 21 kids. It was like 2 families with 10 and 11 kids, and we are just like, oh my God. All my stereotypes were there. And I was in my secret heart of hearts, I would have rather died as a martyr than be a big family mom. I never said it out loud, but I'll say it now because you might relate when you're just like, there's so many things I would rather do for your Lord. Like I had a sincere heart. I was in Bible training missionary college to serve the Lord with gladness. But I was like, anything, anything, anything other than that. I had a lot of baggage and a lot of fears. So I didn't know nothing about big family motherhood. And here's the irony. Now I can look back and say, it isn't actually as hard as it looks. Caveat, because my next point is going to be, it kind of is as hard as it looks. So I'll explain both. I Because I had all those stereotypes, all those fears, and they were very cultural fears, based on TV shows like what was that? Cheaper Than a Dozen. When Home Alone. We're like, how do you forget a child at home? Honestly, I know. I rewatched the movie because I was like, it's a really funny movie. And how do you forget a child at home? Like as a big family mom, there's so many ways. I'm just like, how did his ticket not get anyway, I'd have to rewatch it to be like, how did exactly that happen logically from a plot point? But realistically, all my fears were like, it can't be done. Old woman in the shoe, wouldn't know what to do. But now that I'm here, well, see, they didn't all come at once. That's what I often say when people see me in public and they make some kind of like, I call them diarrhea statements. Forgive my crassness, but it's just like, just like it just falls right out of their mouth, and I'm like, well, you didn't even try to hold that one back. But they'll say something like something really original. Like, "Wow, you've got a lot of kids. Wow." Or, just some kind of stupid thing. "Wow, you guys, well, don't have a TV?" Anyway, I mean, another talk for another time of kinda how I handle those different situations, and I have done videos on that, and they're available on my YouTube channel, my Big Family Moms group, if you wanna check it out. So it isn't as hard as it looks when I set aside all those stereotypes and fears, because now once I trusted God with our family size and all the logistics, all the heart stuff, all the things I was actually really scared of, the reasons why I would have rather died. Well, when I really unpacked my fears, what it really came down to is like, God, will you take care of me? God, is my body going to fall apart? Is my life going to suck? Am I really going to hate it? And then the kids are going to have a really crappy life because they end up having like a nightmare mom who secretly resents motherhood. Maybe it had more to do with my own childhood and my own baggage that I didn't even realize, like we've all got it. Um, but by God's grace, work in progress, and a lot of that stuff has been exposed and uprooted through heart guarding, through prayer ministry, just through God's grace and time, His perfect divine timing to deal with the stuff that's hidden in our hearts. It's really hindering us from fully like experiencing His love, His truth, and then walking in it imperfectly. Because of course, not glorified yet. That being said, it's not as hard as it looks because they didn't all come at once. So when people say, "Oh, gosh, what is that? Are those all your kids?" Yes, praise the Lord, they are. Yeah, it's one set of twins, one dad. Yeah, they're all mine. Yeah, they came out of my body. C-sections, all of them. Standing in a parking lot talking to a total stranger. They didn't all come out at once, except for the twins. They did, 40 seconds apart. And they were my second, like my second pregnancy. So I had 3 kids under the age of 2. Um, and that was the pressure cooker point when God chose to, the way I say it is to hit me upside the head with a holy 2 by 4, with love. And He really started to press in on my heart as people began to ask us, "So are you done yet?" Because we had 1 girl and 2 boys, and in a missionary Christian community, that's done. That's done. And we even had some people say, like, "Well, nobody's gonna wanna support a big family." And I was just like, that is so theologically unsound. Humanly speaking, some people might balk at a big family, thinking of like missionary, raising funds and so on. I was like, but like the Lord is the Lord of the cattle on a thousand hills, right? Like He ultimately is the provider, and it's not people. My faith is not in people to provide. So because I have a missionary background, I haven't experienced as much fear over funds because I've seen Him provide again and again and again in that area. So I've had other areas that I've had to really grow in that are much more personal and unique to me. But the money piece was never really a huge struggle because I'd already experienced a level, I think a measure of grace and growth in that area. So it's not as hard as it looks because they don't all come out at once. And you get, time between your pregnancies, time to grow and learn new skills that I clearly did not have. So, and there's a lot of resources available now that weren't necessarily available when I was a brand new mom. Case in point, Big Family Moms, my group, got a YouTube channel, paying it forward, giving what I wish I'd had at the beginning with like networks of supporting women. Facebook just started when I was a new mom. Not that it's the be all, the end all, but it is a way to connect with other people who are like minded and have that unique things in common, like being a big family mom. And it's one of the things I hear most commonly is women join my group, and it's like exploding like 100 people a week. They say, "I feel so like I'm at home, like these are my people," because when they present a problem that they're dealing with, they don't immediately, like they might in another mom's group, they don't immediately hear, "Well, maybe you just shouldn't have that many kids." I'm like, "Oh, that's completely unhelpful and actually really insulting." But moving on, right? So I just love that that's available. They don't all come all at once, and there's a lot more resources and support out there than when I started. Point number 2. So I said I was going to kind of contradict myself. It kind of is as hard as it looks, just maybe not, the fears I was talking about before, because it is very sanctifying, like all great acts of service. And it is motherhood, whether you have 2 kids or 21 kids, is service. I mean, it's Romans 12, 1 and 2, right? To laying down your body as a living sacrifice, right? No longer being transformed by the renewing of your mind, no longer conforming to the pattern of the world, right? And knowing the um, good, perfect, and true will of God. I might be botching that one, but if you've heard it, you know what I'm talking about. I love that picture of laying down your body as a living sacrifice. This is a true act of worship. And for me, I've really internalized that as a mom. It's not my only like part of me. I wasn't born a mom, and motherhood is not necessarily like my only um what would be the word? Like the only thing that gives me purpose in this life. I mean, it's but it is a big part of who I am. And God has sanctified me and continues to sanctify me through motherhood. It really is that pressure cooker, like I was saying earlier, the other analogies and metaphors God uses in scripture, like the silversmithing, right? When he heats up the metal, melts it right down to liquid to bring all the dross, all the gunk and the impure metals to the surface, and then scoops them off. Scoops them off. It's really cool if you ever Google metalsmithing, goldsmithing, silversmithing to actually see how that's done, because it's not something like the average Western person is really familiar with. But it's a really cool analogy of how God scoops it off until the silversmith can see their reflection, reflecting back at them. And I'm just, oh, there's tears. So it's such a fast track of sanctification being a mom. And I think, well, indulge me, of being a big family mom, there's more sanctification because it's intense. Pardon me, I've got a lozenge in my mouth, so I don't like. I'm really coughing a lot today. Um, it is intense. It's supposed to be. So though it's not as hard as it looks, it's not necessarily a walk in the park either, because it's extended for many women, not all. Sometimes, your heart is completely willing to embrace the blessing of children, have as many children as the Lord will bring to you, maybe barring extreme health circumstances. And then it comes to an end far sooner than you thought, and you weren't really ready for it. I'll get to that in a second. It is sanctifying. So as much as there's time to learn skills, there's also time and opportunity, if you choose to lay hold of it, to grow in God's grace. And now that I have time, right, the advantage of my 40s, I love my 40s, they're even better than my 30s. So much better than 20s. I can look back because I still have health, but now I have a little more wisdom for the road. And I can see how God has provided over and over and again, beyond just financial provision, though we've had lean years and hard times. Like it hasn't been utterly without some sweating points and some challenges and some frugality and some creativity and sometimes really like going without or watching other people go on another annual vacation to, some luxury vacation with their 1.4 kids. And we're going to go camping this year. It's sanctifying. And this is the garden in which I'm flourishing. And so it's not super easy. It's also really, really good, because growing in God's grace, however you get there, when this is all over and the kids are grown and the grandkids, Lord willing, right? And my time comes, and I'd love like anyone to grow to be great grandmother, with a gorgeous head of silver hair and die peacefully in my sleep, people singing hymns around me. But when my time comes, the Lord knows when it comes. It could come like a thief in the night. What's it all going to be about? What's going to be left when it's all burned up, when my life is over, when it's all done, when the scroll is rolled up at the end of time, at the wedding supper of the Lamb? It's not just going to be about motherhood. And I pray that I lived my life in a faithful way, imperfectly faithful way, that is pleasing to the Lord like a fragrant offering, and that he sees his reflection looking back in my messy life. Whew, don't get emotional today. Okay. Last point. Going with this time theme, right? There's time to learn skills because it's hard. It's not as hard as you thought, but you will have to, because you're going to have time to learn skills. It's also hard. It is hard. I'll be honest about that. It's very sanctifying though, right? So that's a redemptive, hopeful tone while being realistic about the difficulties involved. That can be very unique. I've only touched on a few. So there's opportunity to grow in grace and sanctification, which at the end of it all is a beautiful thing. And I'll understand it more when we meet face to face, right? When this is all over. And that being said, the days are long and the years are very short. A year ago today, I gave birth to Corey, who turned 1 today. That makes sense. Sorry, I'm just catching my thoughts. I'm just going to wipe my eyes. All my children have been C-sections. And that's not an easy road. Not going to get into that so much. It's another talk for another time. I have other videos and content on that if you want to talk about that. I don't tell everybody this, but you may have heard it before. Here it is. Hers was the most difficult surgery. All my surgeries, all my C-sections for me, right? This is a medical advice, I'm not a doctor, so, consult your own doctor. But my OB, who's worked with me here in Ottawa, where I live for since baby number 4, so for 7 children, she's, we built a good relationship, and she's the one of 9 herself. So, I mean, God's amazing provision to connect me with the one Canadian, OBGYN who'd be, not be antagonistic towards us being not that there really are, but she's been great. So she was honest with me after the surgery though. When she came in, we had like the post-op talk like the next day. And she kind of put her hand on mine and she's like, Tara, your uterus is really fragile. And it was kind of like code because we'd had some talks before that she would talk to me honestly from her professional opinion while holding like in full knowledge of how committed we were for our own religious convictions to welcome as many children as God would send us up until menopause. Like that was my dream. Was And she said, "There's a lot of bleeding," it was there were some touch and go points. I kinda dozed in and out of the whole thing, so I wasn't really paying attention because I've learned through many C-sections, I've had 10, to just, like, doze through it. It's not that exciting after the baby's born and, off in, with daddy's arms. So I just catch some sleep because they usually get me up at the crack of dawn to get to the hospital. Um, we talked about a month later, like and pardon me, getting my timeline wrong. We talked a few months later because Corey started sleeping through the night really well, which is a, mom's dream. But I knew what it meant, and my cycle kicked back in way early. Usually, my cycle doesn't come back till about their first birthday. They start to wean naturally, and the spacing between the nursings get apart. And I know you probably heard it too, right? Like breastfeeding isn't a guarantee that you're not going to ovulate, so on and so forth. But that's not the discussion. The point is this: my cycle came back early, and for the first time in all of my years as a big family mom, I experienced a sense of dread that I'd never experienced before, and I felt so guilty about it. So I'm like, Lord, I've had so much faith to trust you this far. I felt like disloyal. I felt like I was caving into to a wrong kind of fear, like as if any kind of fear was necessarily ungodly, right? Because I mean, I know all the verses, right, about fear, and it comes from a place of punishment, and perfect love casteth out all fear and all that. And I was just like, what is this? So, long story short, I talked to my husband, and this is what I advise anybody: if you're having any, serious concerns, especially welcoming more children. When do I stop? Do we ever have to stop? It's a whole other talk, right? The theology of it, and I've written a whole book on it to share from my perspective, my understanding of scripture. But I came to a point a couple months after Corey was born, and I'm really feeling it today. So I hope this is going to bless somebody who perhaps needs to hear it now, right now, live, or in the future when you're catching this, maybe years from now, because it's going to be archived for maybe even past my lifetime, right? So long as someone keeps my YouTube channel open. So we had a frank talk, me and my doctor, and my husband, obviously. And between God, my doctor, and my husband, really the 3 only people I think should be involved in that discussion, we came to the conclusion that it was time to protect my womb from getting pregnant again, because the risk, she said, when I asked her flat out, I said, "How dangerous do you think it would be for me to get pregnant in my usual timeline, like about right at the baby's first birthday?" I hadn't even finished the sentence, and I had asked her like 9 out of 10, like not 9 out of 10, I said like 10 out of 10 being the worst, 0 being, no risk. What do you think? And I didn't even finish the sentence. She said 9. 9, Tara. This is very dangerous now. And I was just like, oh, crap. I never wanted to walk this road. I wanted my story. Should I actually be able to write my story, write my life story, to be like, and menopause came and they had a nice round dozen or whatever. I was 44 this September. I am fully committed to welcoming all the children the Lord will send our way. And then I think I knew there was risk. I knew there was risk with multiple C-sections. And it's different for everybody. So like, don't just follow my pattern, talk to your own doctor. Um, and I came to a point where now I've had a number of cycles this year, and we're choosing to use prophylactics, using condoms. I don't want to get into all the other methods. Takes more faith to prevent a pregnancy than to welcome one sometimes. So the days are long, especially in those early years with little one or babies having fever like my girl did yesterday. And I have a cold too. But man, the years have flown by. And now here I am, preparing my heart as much as one can for the end of my childbearing season. And someone asked me, well, not asked me, asked in the group the other day, like, how do you prepare for this? And I'm like right there with you. Like we're actually parallel. I'm not a little further ahead, so I can't necessarily give advice from experience, but this is the advice I shared. And I'm speaking to my own soul, like David did. Like, why are you so downcast? Oh, my soul, put your hope in God. It's gonna be like the last season of entering into motherhood, the summer of life. Now I'm coming into the fall with my nice silvers. And winter, I can feel the winds blowing. Though I'm not that old yet. I'm only in my 40s. Lord willing. The same faith, the same God, the same Holy Spirit that brought me, like any other big family mom, to the beginning of welcoming the blessing of children and what that means practically, like birthing lots of babies back to back for years and nursing them and toting them around and having nap times all the time forever, it seems. Well, it comes to an end. Corey's just turned 1, but guess what? She went on a nursing strike 4 days ago. Cold stop. My breasts are about to explode. I've had to like pump a little bit just to take some pressure off. And I'm praying that she'll come back to it. But like she arches her back and screeches when I try to offer it to her. And I'm like, okay, well, she's drinking from a sippy cup. We're okay, we're okay. But I was like, well, is that it? Like that's it's just like so sudden. It's so sudden. Like there was no transition. And I mean, I'll let you know if she comes off the nursing strike. I had to Google it real quick because I was like, this has never happened to me before. 11 kids, I've never had a nursing strike, but it does happen. She's teething. She's got a giant tooth coming in, so maybe that's it. I'm hoping. The days are long and the years are short, and I've learned a lot of things. I'm still learning a lot of skills. I've grown a lot in grace, and I'm still growing a lot in grace through the hard seasons, through the easy seasons. Embracing the blessing of children, it does practically mean being willing to welcome the children. But it also means, the way I'm understanding it now, is being willing to trust God who works all things together in all the seasons and what that looks like. And I know it's not going to be one size fits all for every mom, especially with health considerations, sometimes mental health considerations and unique considerations. But I do know, and I'm holding on to this, and this is where I'll wrap up, that He promises to be with us to the end, right? The Great Commission. As we go forth, right? Sharing the gospel, making disciples, and I'm sure sugar doing that at home, right, with my own children. Lord, help me. Like I'm not on the mission field as I thought I would be, but I am at home here in Canada, raising up my children alongside my husband. We homeschool and presenting them with the gospel on the regular and figuring it out as we go along because we didn't grow up with an example on how to do this. So I trust that God's grace that brought me here will carry with me going forward. So those are 3 things that I did not know about motherhood, and I'm really walking it out. This has been a little bit longer broadcast than usual, but I just had a sense that this was a very spirit-led talk today because I woke up this morning and was like, Lord, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to talk about. And this happens every week. And then I just sort of like present that to Him, and then throughout the morning, something will come to my heart in this, just like in a way I know, at least I think I know, and I just run with it. Thank you, all of you. I can see the comments here. Being sorry, it doesn't actually tell me your name right now, but I because my chat thing doesn't tell me the name. But another person says you're in the same boat after Mariah. Thank you for praying for me. Yeah, whatever the way the Lord sees fit to do it. And yet, this has been a joyful season, and it still is a joyful season. And I choose to walk in the joy that the Lord has for me today, right? And that it will be my strength. And still honoring. There's sometimes a lot of grief in the ending of a season. And sometimes, especially when you're in the thick of it, wherever you are. So, wherever you find yourself in motherhood, in the season of motherhood, whatever that looks like for you, God bless you. I'm going to be taking some time off from the Big Family Moms group. We're actually going to be pausing the group on the 24th and 25th. Pausing it means it goes into a read-only status, so you can still, like, read, you can access the guides, but it means I don't have to administrate and do any of that stuff, so there won't be, new posts or commenting. It's just gonna be read-only, so it just gives me, my family, a nice break for a couple of days. So God bless you wherever you are. A very Merry Christmas to you and yours, and I'll see you again. If not before the end of the year, I don't have any planned lives, but I'll definitely see you again as I start up my broadcasts weekly again in the new year. God bless you.